Hello and welcome back. When we talk about Netaji Mystery, Netaji's disappearance, primarily in these days, we restrict ourselves to three scenarios. Actually, in reality, इन तीन सिनेरियोज को छोड़ के भी कई सारे क्लेम्स हैं, कई सारे सिनेरियोज हैं, और ये सिनेरियोज शुरू हुआ, इसका सिलसिला शुरू हुआ है बिल्कुल प्लेन क्रैश की स्टोरी के बिल्कुल बाद से ही, मतलब टुवर्ड्स द एंड ऑफ 1945, अर्ली 1946. इसमें से कुछ क्लेम्स हैं, कुछ ऑल्टरनेटिव हाइपोथेसिस हैं. क्लेम्स में कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि उन्होंने नेताजी को यहाँ देखा, वहाँ देखा, इस हालत में देखा, उस हालत में देखा. ऑल्टरनेटिव हाइपोथेसिस कहते हैं कि वो ना तो रशिया में मरे, ना भारत वापस आए, उनको ऐसे मारा गया, वो जाके गुमनामी बाबा नहीं पर दूसरे किसी रूप में रह रहे थे. नाउ व्हाइल सम ऑफ दीज क्लेम्स आर एब्सोल्युटली रिडिकुलस, some, a few, are pretty interesting. They cannot be proved, but they do shed light on these three broad scenarios. Apart from that, there is also the issue of imagination. कि सवाल उठता है, it can be a very interesting study in psychology, कि इतने सारे लोग इतने सालों से इतनी कहानियाँ कैसे बनाए, क्यों बनाए, क्या मिला उनको, किस मोटिव से बनाए. ऐसे कई सारे क्लेम्स डिफरेंट इंक्वायरीज के सामने आए हैं. बट जो पहला इंक्वायरी था, शाहनवाज कमेटी, उन्होंने ऐसे क्लेम्स को अपने रिपोर्ट में कोई जगह दिया ही नहीं. वहाँ पे कई सारे बहुत दिलचस्प क्लेम्स किए गए थे, जैसे कि वन जेंटलमैन क्लेम्ड दैट ही हैड मेट अ साधु हु सेड दैट नेताजी वाज नॉट डेड बट ही वाज लिविंग इन तिब्बत एंड डूइंग some atomic research. It's better to, I mean, the words that he used was that atomic sadhana. So he was doing atomic sadhana to grasp the power of the atom so that he can use it. But by that time he finished his atomic sadhana and came out of it, he realized that the world science had moved on to hydrogen bomb technology. So he went back to do hydrogen bomb sadhana, and he succeeded in that, and he had completed that. Now he was going to come back to India with his the power of cosmic rays in his hands. So that these are the kinds of stories that came. There was another gentleman who said that his eldest son was a reincarnation of Netaji, whereas his youngest son was a reincarnation of Netaji's elder brother, Sharat Chandra Bose. There was another gentleman who wrote that he wrote from Calcutta. He said that between 1945 and 1956, he had personal knowledge that Netaji had visited Kolkata at least twice. Now, most of these stories, claims have been rejected by the official inquiries, but there has been not much scholarly study of the claims. Probably that would be a different approach. तो ये सीरीज करने का मेरा जो इरादा है, उसका गोल ये है टू टेक अप सम ऑफ दीज claims, some of these theories, hypotheses, which appear very interesting and which have created myths and legends. मेरा मोटिव इसमें यह है कि ऐसे जो स्ट्रेंज, वियर्ड, एब्सर्ड स्टोरीज हैं जो अनप्रूवन हैं, उसको एक न्यू एंगल से देखना. दे आर ऑल्सो इम्पॉर्टेंट, एंड इसमें सवाल करते हैं लोग, आज भी सवाल करते हैं क्योंकि जानकारी सबके पास नहीं है. सो दैट इज़ माई अदर ऑब्जेक्टिव कि इसके बारे में जितना इन्फॉर्मेशन है आपको यहाँ मिलेगा. ऑथेंटिक इन्फॉर्मेशन, डॉक्यूमेंटेड, नो गॉसिप, नो रूमर, एब्सोल्युटली एक्यूरेट इन्फॉर्मेशन. तो आज जो स्टोरी मैं आपके सामने लेके आ रहा हूँ, which is very well known, but the full story has never been told. Very few actually know the full story. I am talking about the claim that Pandit Nehru wrote a letter to England's Prime Minister Clement Attlee, informing him that Subhas Chandra Bose was a war criminal and Stalin had given him shelter. So these kinds of claims came, but the Shanwas committee did not give much importance to them. None of them were actually included in their report, in the final report. But things were different with the second inquiry led by Justice G.D. Khosla. Khosla highlighted these kind of absurd, ridiculous claims to show that people were in the habit of making up stories, unfounded stories. And one of these stories that came in front of him was this theory, this claim that Nehru wrote to Attlee informing him that Netaji had gone over to Russia. And this letter of Nehru has been published in various formats, particularly in the age of social media. It had been published earlier also in some minor books here and there, particularly in Bengali books, but it exploded in this age of social media, in the internet. I mean, this one letter you will find is in different formats, written with innumerable spelling mistakes, different versions, one not matching with the other, and everybody claiming that it is an authentic letter. Now, this story was first made famous by Samar Guha, but in recent times this has been made really popular and famous by Subramaniam Swamy. Now, Dr. Swamy has taken this forward, extended this claim, this hypothesis to insinuate, not insinuate, actually he has directly claimed that Netaji was terminated by Stalin in Russia. Dr. Swamy has told innumerable times on TV channel interviews that he came across the files when he was a minister in Chandrachur's government, and that's how he came to know about this. And he has absolute belief and absolute faith in this story. Now let's get into the details of the claim. This claim was made in front of G.D. Khosla by a person from Meerut called Shyamlal Jain. Now, who was Shyamlal Jain? Shyamlal Jain was a typist in the civil court in Meerut. He joined the Congress movement when he was still a school student, and participated in the civil disobedience movement, and he was a forerunner member of the Congress in those days. After this, when Subhas Bose went to Meerut, Shyamlal Jain saw him, met him, and a number of times he saw Subhash Chandra Bose there and was so impressed by him that he joined, he started following Subhas Bose, and when Netaji formed the forward bloc, Shyamlal Jain also joined the forward bloc. While narrating his story to Justice Khosla, Shyamlal Jain made it very clear that he was a staunch follower of Netaji and he did not like Gandhiji's ideology at all. Jain claimed that he met Netaji a number of times, talked to him, saw him from very close quarters and knew him pretty well. Since he was an active Congress worker, Jawaharlal Nehru also knew him quite well. So when the INA trial started and the INA Defense Committee was set up by the Congress, one day he was summoned by Jawaharlal Nehru to the office of the Defense Committee in Daryaganj in Delhi. Nehru apparently told him that his services were required for the work of Netaji, for the cause of Netaji, and asked him to bring his typewriter to the Defense Committee office. There, Jain worked for 2 months and 6 days. His workplace usually was the Defense Committee, but he also went to the Red Fort for some typing work, and at times he used to go to Asaf Ali's house. Asaf Ali was the Congress leader at that time. And now the story starts. Jain claimed that one day in December, it was either the 26th of December or the 27th of December, he could not remember exactly, but he was pretty sure that it was one of these 2 days. He was called by Jawaharlal Nehru to Asaf Ali's house over phone with his typewriter and carbon papers. It was around 7:30 in the evening. He was having his dinner, and after finishing his dinner, when he went to Asaf Ali's house, he saw both Nehru and Asaf Ali sitting across a table, sipping whiskey and smoking cigarettes. Nehru told him that there was some urgent and some good volume of work for him to do that evening, and then he gave Jain the work that needed to be done. After about half an hour of typing, Jain claimed that Nehru came to his side, took out a paper from the inside pocket of his achkan, gave it to Jain and told him to type it out at once. Jain typed it out, and he said that letter seemed to him to be sensational. That piece of paper was actually a handwritten letter. As Jain started typing, Nehru was called away by Asaf Ali to another room, and Jain kept on typing, and this is what was written in that letter. Netaji Subhas Bose started from Saigon by aeroplane. He arrived in Dairen, Manchuria at 1:30 in the afternoon. Thereafter, he took tea with bananas. There was also a motor jeep standing nearby. The said aeroplane from which Netaji alighted was a Japanese bomber plane which could accommodate only one man. The said plane was full of gold in the shape of ornaments, jewelry and bars. Netaji carried 2 attache cases, one in each hand, full of precious stones. In the meantime, the said gold was unloaded from the plane and loaded in the motor jeep. When Netaji finished tea, he took his seat in the said motor jeep, and 4 persons also took their seats in the same motor jeep. Now Jain told Khosla that although he remembered the names of those 4 people for some time due to lapse of the intervening 25 years, he couldn't remember them anymore. He could just remember one name, and that name was General Shidei. Khosla asked Jain whether the other names were Indians or Japanese. Jain remembered this much, that those 3 names were Indian names. He then recalled the letter that thereafter the said motor jeep proceeded to Russian territory, and after 2 or 3 hours the motor jeep returned to the same place at the airport, and the pilot of the plane was informed that he had made Netaji enter the Russian territory safely. One of those persons who had taken Netaji returned with the jeep. Thereafter the plane flew to Tokyo. Jain made 4 copies of this letter and waited for Nehru to return, because he could not decipher the name of the writer of this letter, and he remembered that the date of this letter was 23rd August 1945. Surprisingly, even Nehru could not decipher the name, so he asked Jain to just write illegible at the place of the signature. Thereafter, Nehru took out 4 sheets from his own letter pad and started dictating to Jain for typing out a new letter. This letter was addressed to Clement Attlee. Nehru began to dictate. Clement Attlee, Esquire, Prime Minister of Great Britain, 10 Downing Street, London. Dear Mr. Attlee, I understand from most reliable source that Subhas Chandra Bose, your war criminal, has been allowed by Stalin to enter the Russian territory, which action of his is a clear treachery and a betrayal of faith, as when Russia was an ally of the British and the Americans, Stalin should not have done so. This is just for your information and to be taken notice of. So this is the letter that is at the center of so much controversy. Now the question is, how much truth there is in this claim? Can we trust Shamlal Jain? The lawyers in the commission and the judge, Justice Khosla himself, tried to break down Shamlal Jain to the best of their capability. They cross-examined him, interrogated literally, and tried to see whether he would stick to his version or he would change or make mistakes. So the first thing that was assured was whether Shamlal Jain was actually at all involved with the stenographer's work at the INA Defense Committee. This Shamlal Jain could prove very easily. He had a certificate from Asaf Ali, the original of which he placed before Khosla. So there could his claim that he was a typist there could not be disputed. One thing has to be emphasized here is that Shamlal Jain, while deposing, made it very, very clear. He left no doubt about the fact that the words that he used were not the exact words of the letters. In essence, he, from memory, in a gap of 25 years, he reproduced from memory whatever he could, but he was honest enough to say that these were not the exact words. Khosla first tried to pin him down on one point where Jain said that the letterhead which Nehru gave him for typing, on the left hand corner, top left hand corner of that letterhead, it was written Jawaharlal Nehru, M.A. Oxon, Bar at Law. Now, Khosla knew Nehru personally and very well, and he knew that Nehru studied in Cambridge and he was not M.A. Oxon. So that part was wrong. So he repeatedly asked Jain, "Are you sure?" Jain said, "This is what I remember. I might be wrong, but this is what I have in my mind. This is what I remember." Then the obvious question that came up was that whether Jain informed about this incident to anyone else. There was the Shanwas committee in 1956. Why didn't Jain inform the Shanwas committee? Now, Jain had very poor opinion about Shanwas Khan, and he also had very poor opinion about Jawaharlal Nehru. So he made it very clear in front of Khosla that he didn't think it would serve any purpose to write to the Shanwas committee about Jawaharlal Nehru. And moreover, he was not aware of the working of the Shanwas committee. He got to know about the committee only when the committee was traveling to Tokyo, and he didn't think it was important to inform them. So somewhat specious argument, makes little sense, but Jain claimed that for an ordinary person like him, it was unthinkable to go to talk to big people and tell them this story, which on the face of it sounded incredible. But he said that he had written letters to Nehru, to Lal Bahadur Shastri, to Indira Gandhi, to Radhakrishnan and a few other top leaders, but never got any response from anyone other than Radhakrishnan, who only acknowledged the receipt of his letter. He, in his letters, he always informed them that he believed that Netaji was alive and the story of plane crash was false. Now, after this, Shyamlal Jain got in touch with Uttam Chand Malhotra when the Sholmare episode became famous. It became a raging controversy throughout the country, and that was from the early 1960s. When Uttam Chand Malhotra started making his claims and started writing articles, Shyamlal Jain wrote a letter to him, apparently describing the entire event. But for some mysterious reason, Uttam Chand Malhotra published his Jain's letter, only part of Jain's letter. So the question is whether we can trust, or how much we can trust, how much truth. Frankly speaking, there is no way to tell whether this is true or false. Somebody just comes up with a claim without any corroborating evidence. There is no reason to take it as the truth. But could it have been the truth? One thing about Shyamlal Jain's deposition was that he was consistent. From the beginning till the end, he was consistent. He never wavered even a bit from his actual story. So much so that one of the lawyers who was cross-examining him, Niyarendu Datta Majumdar. Now, Niyarendu Datta Majumdar was a barrister and a famous lawyer and later a minister. He knew what he was talking about, and multiple times Niyarendu Datta Majumdar gave him that certificate there, certified, admitted, acknowledged that Shyamlal Jain was being honest. He was telling what he thought was the truth. So he was not kind of prevaricating. So this is the story that has been taken by Dr. Swamy and extended to the claim that Stalin killed Netaji in Russia. There has been no verification, no letter has been found, no letter from Nehru to Attlee has ever been found in either British archives or Attlee's private papers. It has never come to the surface. If it at all exists, it must have been kept secret still. It's difficult to say, but in absence of such an evidence, this claim cannot be accepted. But then I stumbled upon some new information. I was going through the contemporary newspapers and I couldn't find any indication that Pandit Nehru was present in Delhi either on the 26th or on the 27th. In fact, Asaf Ali was also travelling and he returned to Delhi on the 27th morning. So Asaf Ali was present in Delhi, that much is ascertained. But what about Nehru? Pandit Nehru was in Patna on the 25th of December, where he garlanded a photo of Netaji. And thereafter, he returned to Allahabad. And I also found a news report of a meeting between Pandit Nehru and Tej Bahadur Sapru on the 27th morning. So till 27th morning, Pandit Nehru certainly was in Allahabad. What happened after that? On 28th, I haven't seen anything, any news report on Nehru. So I don't know his whereabouts. But on the 29th, in another news report, I find Nehru issuing a statement from Allahabad. So in all probability, Pandit Nehru was in Allahabad on the dates indicated by Shyamlal Jain. And if that is the case, then Shyamlal Jain has completely mixed up the dates. And if he has mixed up the dates, his story, his claim becomes all the more untenable. But now the funny part about Dr. Swami's claim in relation to the story of Shyamlal Jain. While he always talks about this letter to Nehru and from Nehru, Dr. Swami never mentions the other component of Shyamlal Jain's deposition. That story takes place in 1967. Shyamlal Jain met a sannyasi named Atmanand Tirth in Virat during one of the meetings, public meetings of Uttam Chand Malhotra. And there, Swamiji asked Shyamlal Jain whether he knew anything about Netaji's whereabouts. Shyamlal Jain said he didn't have any current information about Netaji's whereabouts, but he was very eager to know. Then the Swamiji told Shyamlal Jain that he had met, which means the Swamiji, met Netaji in Tibet twice in 1949 and then again in Punjab in 1952. So obviously Shyamlal Jain got very enthusiastic about it and wanted to meet Netaji. Jain immediately talked with Uttam Chand Malhotra and Hiralal Dikshit, the two protagonists of the Shalmari controversy in northern India, and they wanted to meet Netaji. Swamiji then sometime later told them that Netaji realized that it would be a very difficult journey for these people to go to where he was staying, although he did not disclose the location. But he assured them that Netaji would be visiting Meerut within a few days, and then at that time Netaji would certainly meet them. And that happened on the 7th of October 1967. Shyamlal Jain claimed that on the morning of 7th October, he was having his morning tea in his house when the Bengali gentleman came and asked for him. It was about 7:30 in the morning. The Bengali gentleman informed Shyamlal Jain that Netaji had come to Meerut the previous night and he was waiting in a place called Jadugar Gabag in Meerut, and he wanted to see Shyamlal Jain. So Jain, his son, and this Bengali gentleman, all three of them went in a car to meet Netaji. There he saw Netaji sitting on a wooden chowki, smoking a cigarette. On seeing Jain, he asked, "How are you, Shyamlal? Is it well with you and your family?" Shyamlal Jain replied, "Yes, Babaji, all is well." Now note it, Shyamlal Jain in his reply did not say "Yes, Netaji." He said "Yes, Babaji." Thereafter, Netaji asked him about his old associates in the forward block, and Jain told him about the old associates, whoever was in whatever condition, he gave him the information. And some of these old associates were also present in Jadugar ka Bagh. Jain and his son were treated with sweets, namkeen, tea, and Jain was asked to come again around 1:30 to the house of Raghunandan Saran Garg, who was an assistant engineer in the UP government. Jain and his son again went to Garg's house at 1:30 and saw Netaji sitting there with 30 to 40 people in front of him and talking on different topics. Now, during this meeting, Netaji asked Shyamlal Jain to accompany him to Varanasi and asked him to be present at a certain point near a petrol pump in Meerut, from where he would be picked up during Netaji's journey to Varanasi. Jain waited there near the petrol pump at 6:30 p.m. in the evening, and as promised, he was picked up. There were two cars. In one car, Netaji was sitting there, and in another car there were some other persons with whom Jain travelled. So Shyamlal Jain gave this story. Now, who was this Netaji? Could Jain have made a mistake? Because Jain had seen Netaji, Subhas Chandra Bose, during his forward block days, during his Congress days, and he had seen Subhas Bose from close quarters. He had conversation with Subhas Bose. So, can we trust what he was saying? Jain described the Netaji that he travelled with. He said that the Netaji who was travelling in one of the cars was dressed in white kurta and a tehmat and rubber chappals on his feet, and bareheaded but with a long beard and moustache and without spectacles. And then comes the interesting part. This Netaji was accompanied by a gentleman called Ramaniranjan Das. Das had his two daughters and a baby in the lap of one of the daughters. And this gives away the identity of the Netaji with whom Shyamlal Jain travelled. It was the sadhu of Shalmari Ashram, Swami Saradananda, who was mistaken by many people to have been Netaji. I have already covered the Shalmari episode in this channel. There's a 2-episode series, investigative series, where I have clearly brought out what was happening in Shalmari, what is the truth of Shalmari. So it becomes clear here that Shyamlal Jain was talking about the sadhu of Shalmari. But the important point is, while Dr. Swami and many others like him blow up this story, this claim of Shyamlal Jain, they never look into the details. They never bring out the full story, the full truth. So whatever we can make out of Shyamlal Jain's claim is that there is absolutely no basis to believe his claims. Firstly, he has mixed up the dates, and although he has given a credible deposition where the cross-examining lawyers could not break him down, yet there is no corroborating evidence. He has made some basic elementary mistakes about Jawaharlal Nehru's qualification, educational qualification, and he claimed the sadhu of Shalmari to be Netaji. So it's all a khichdi, and although very interesting, that is the end of this claim and this story. It does not lead us anywhere other than to the story of Shalmari Sadhu, which has already been debunked. That's all for today. I will come back again with another astounding claim, another absurd claim, another interesting claim. We will look into the stories. Till then, goodbye. Jai Hind.